When people talk about the civil rights movement, they usually mention Birmingham, Selma, or Montgomery. But between 1963 and 1964, one of the most violent and consequential civil rights confrontations in the country took place here in St. Augustine. Black residents made up nearly a quarter of the population, but segregation governed nearly every part of daily life: school, restaurants, hotels, beaches, and public spaces. This was nearly 10 years after the Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus the Board of Education, which declared segregated schools unconstitutional. Yet by 1964, only 6 black children had been admitted into white public schools in St. Augustine. The response to even this limited integration was violent. One family's home was burned, another family's car was set on fire, while parents attended a school meeting. In the early 1960s, the city was preparing to celebrate its 400th anniversary in 1965. City leaders expected the celebration to attract national and international attention. African Americans were excluded from planning the events. The official narrative, of course, focused on St. Augustine's Spanish colonial history, while ignoring slavery, segregation, and the Jim Crow system still in place. To the black residents, the message was clear. The city would celebrate its past while denying its present. One of the central figures in the St. Augustine movement was Dr. Robert B. Hayling. He was an Air Force veteran, a dentist, and a leader in the local NAACP. Hayling believed that traditional appeals and negotiations had failed. In response, he helped organize a local NAACP youth council that began engaging in nonviolent direct action. In the summer of 1963, young protesters held sit-ins at segregated lunch counters and wade-ins at whites-only swimming pools and beaches. On July 18, 1963, a sit-in at Woolworth's lunch counter led to the arrest of 16 young black protesters, including juveniles. Authorities offered release if the protesters promised to stop demonstrating. 4 teenagers refused. They were sent to reform school for 6 months. The case drew national attention and condemnation, and the 4, later known as the St. Augustine 4, were released only after intervention by the governor of Florida. As protests continued, threats against activists increased. This attracted the attention of the Ku Klux Klan, and they became more active, issuing death threats and carrying out nighttime attacks in black neighborhoods. In response, Hayling publicly stated that black residents would defend themselves if attacked. Armed patrols were organized in Lincolnville, the city's black neighborhood. When Klan members attempted nighttime assaults, they were sometimes driven away by gunfire. This position put Hayling at odds with national civil rights leadership, but it reflected the reality on the ground in St. Augustine. In September 1963, the Klan held a large rally outside the city. Following the event, Hayling and 3 other activists were seized by Klansmen and beaten with fists, chains, and clubs. When police arrived, the Klansmen were released. Hayling was arrested and later convicted of assault. The incident further convinced local activists that outside help was necessary. Hayling and others reached out to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So in early 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the SCLC became directly involved in the St. Augustine movement. Hayling called on college students from the North to come to St. Augustine during spring break, not for vacation, but to participate in protests. Some who came were of elevated social standing. Among those arrested during the demonstrations was Mary Peabody, the 72-year-old mother of the governor of Massachusetts. Her arrest brought international attention to St. Augustine. From May through July of 1964, protests took place almost nightly. Marchers were attacked by white segregationists, arrested in large numbers, and jailed. When the jail filled, detainees were held outdoors in open stockades under the hot summer sun. Attempts to integrate public beaches, led to demonstrators being beaten and driven into the ocean. Some protesters who could not swim had to be rescued by others. During this period, threats against Dr. King intensified. A cottage prepared to house him was burned. Although King opposed the use of weapons, he was guarded by armed supporters during the entire length of his stay in the city. On June 11, 1964, Dr. King was arrested at the Monson Motor Lodge restaurant. He later wrote from jail asking clergy from around the country to come to St. Augustine. On June 18th, 16 rabbis were arrested at the Monson Motel, the largest mass arrest of Jewish clergy in American history. That same month, a group of black and white protesters entered the motel's segregated swimming pool. The motel manager responded by pouring acid into the pool while people were still in the water. Photographs of this incident were broadcast worldwide. As events in St. Augustine unfolded, Congress was debating the Civil Rights Act. On June 10, 1964, Democrat Senator Robert Byrd, who Joe Biden later called a mentor and a friend, ended a 14-hour speech, which ended a filibuster. And shortly thereafter, Republicans secured enough votes, and with that, the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed segregation, was sent to the president and signed into law on July 2nd. National civil rights leaders left St. Augustine shortly afterward. Despite the passage of the Civil Rights Act, violence and intimidation against black residents continued. Many businesses resisted integration. The Ku Klux Klan remained active. Dr. Hayling lost much of his dental practice and feared for his family's safety. He left St. Augustine in 1966. A historically black college involved in the protests eventually relocated from the city. In 2003, the Monson Motor Lodge was demolished. Years later, the city formally recognized Dr. Hayling's role in its history. A street was named in his honor, and more recently, a park on a scenic peninsula south of Lincolnville bears his name. Though the city has done an abysmal job developing it into something special that the person and place deserve. In 2011, the St. Augustine Foot Soldiers Monument was dedicated in the city's historic plaza. The events of 1963 and 1964 are now recognized as one of the most intense civil rights struggles in American history, and one that played a direct role in changing the law of the nation. For more information and a different historical side of St. Augustine, visit the nonprofit Accord Civil Rights Museum, located at 79 Bridge Street, the same place that housed Dr. Hayling's dental practice. It is open Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 3 p.m. You can also take a self-guided cell phone audio tour or get the Accord Freedom Trail maps at the Visitor Center. There are now 31 markers around town, each with a plaque explaining the site's significance.
For more St. Augustine history and local content, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below.